For this lab, I'm going to be explaining different parts of the brain. So we're going to start with this. This is the cerebellum. It's involved in coordinating movement, such as complex activities, for example, learning how to play an instrument. And then this part right here, we have the brain stem. And then the most inferior is the medulla oblongata. And then superior to the medulla oblongata is the pons, which is right here. And then superior to that is the midbrain, right in there. And then we have the gyrus, which are the folds of the brain. Plural is gyri, so these are the folds all over the brain. And then the sulcus or sulci are the indentations in the brain, right in here. And then the cerebrum, which contains the two cerebral hemispheres, that's both of these. And then the longitudinal fissure is right, divides those two cerebral hemispheres. And then we have the lateral fissure, which is right here. And then we have the precentral gyrus, which is right here. And then I have the central sulcus, which is that line, that indentation right in between. And then the postcentral gyrus, which is in the blue, right here, more towards the back of the brain. So that's why it's posterior, it's postcentral gyrus, because it's posterior to the one in red. And then we have, we're going to explain the different lobes. So I have the frontal lobe, which is right here, the frontal lobe. And then we have the parietal lobe, which is right here, parietal lobe. And then we have the temporal lobe, which is right here. And then the occipital lobe, which is in the back here. All right, and then in red here, I have the primary motor cortex, which is involved in planning and executing movement. And then in the pink, I have the premotor cortex, which is anterior to the primary motor cortex. And it's involved in more complicated movement. And then in green, I have the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in personality, learning, some memory functions, higher cognitive functions. And then in blue, I have the primary somatosensory cortex. This is involved in receiving sensory information from the peripheral nervous system. And then in orange, I have the somatosensory association cortex, which is posterior to the primary somatosensory cortex. Information arrives for more integration here. And then in yellow, I have the primary visual cortex. It's most posterior in the brain. And then it's involved with the simple parts of sight. And then in the aqua bluish color is where we have the visual association area, which is involved with color, movement, and the depth involved with sight. And then in white, right here, I have the primary auditory cortex. In this light purple here next to it, I have the auditory association area. And then right here, this top color would be the Broca's area, which is involved with producing speech. And then in the gray right here, I have the Wernicke's area, which is important in language development and the comprehension of speech.